Welcome, I'm so glad you're here. Tonight, we'll drift into a world woven with smoke and starlight, a realm where ancient dragons stir in their sleep, coiled around mountains, rivers, temples, and dreams. These are stories born in fire, and whispered in myth from the misty peaks of the east to the storm-swept fjords of the north, from sacred forests to the dark sea floor, where serpents guard secrets lost to time. This is a journey through legend, told softly, slowly, not only to enchant, but to soothe. And in this collection, you'll hear 8 dragon myths from cultures across the world, each one wrapped in the quiet glow of magic, each told in a voice meant to lull your mind to rest. We'll begin in the highlands of ancient China, where dragons were not monsters, but guardians of harmony, windbringers, and sky dancers. Then we'll visit the rolling green hills of Wales, where a red dragon rose from the earth to become a nation's beating heart. We'll dive deep into the oceans of Japan to find Ryujin, the sea dragon with a pearl of tides. We'll face the 3 heads of the Slavic Dragons and glide through jungle mist beside Quetzalcoatl, the feathered serpent of creation. From the chaos waters of Babylon to the icy seas of Norse myth and to the hooded Nagas of India, each tale brings its own fire, its own wisdom, its own lullaby of power and wonder. If you enjoy this video and the stories within, I'd be truly grateful if you'd like, comment, and subscribe. It helps these ancient myths find new ears and allows us to keep sharing tales in the quiet spaces of the night. Also, let me know in the comments what time it is and where you're watching from. So now, settle in, close your eyes, or simply rest your thoughts, and let the wings of ancient dragons carry you away. Part 1. The Lung Chinese Dragon Lore in the Ancient World of China. Before empires and dynasties rose and fell, there were stories written not with ink, but with mist and rain. The sky itself bore witness to the reverence of a creature unlike any other, the Lung, the Chinese dragon. It was not a beast of terror or a monster to be slain. It was a guardian, a bringer of balance, a celestial force that wove together heaven and earth with breath as soft as wind, and as powerful as a typhoon. The Lung was not bound by gravity. It danced among the clouds, twining around mountain peaks, and diving into river valleys. Its body was long and serpentine, adorned with the scales of a carp, the antlers of a stag, the claws of an eagle, and the beard of a wise sage. Each part of its form symbolized strength, endurance, and celestial wisdom. It was a creature of contradictions, fierce and benevolent, powerful yet gentle, invisible and omnipresent. It was often depicted chasing the flaming pearl of wisdom, a symbol of spiritual energy and enlightenment. According to the earliest myths, the Lung emerged at the dawn of creation, when the world was still formless and cloaked in shadow. It was the dragons who shaped rivers and carved mountains, who summoned rain from the sky and brought the seasons into harmony. Among them, 4 great dragon kings took residence in the cardinal seas, north, south, east, and west, each governing the tides, the storms, and the life that flowed from their domains. Each had a palace of crystal and jade beneath the waves, guarded by sea creatures and attended by spirits of the water. They convened during celestial alignments to maintain the balance of the elements. The people of ancient China did not fear dragons. they venerated them. To be born in the year of the dragon was a great honor. Emperors claimed to be descended from dragons, wrapping their imperial identity in the mystique of lull. Their robes were embroidered with 5-clawed dragons, symbols of divine right and cosmic authority. It was said that a true emperor's breath bore the scent of lotus and rain, and that his dreams echoed with the voices of dragon ancestors. One of the most beloved legends is that of the Dragon Gate. In this tale, a school of koi fish swims upstream, facing currents and waterfalls, predators and peril. Many turn back, but the strongest, the most determined among them, leaps at last over a towering cascade known as the Dragon Gate. As it crests the summit, it transforms into a radiant golden dragon ascending to the heavens in a burst of light and rain. The water glows green and gold in its wake, and thunder rolls as the dragon vanishes into the clouds. This myth was more than a story. It was a lesson in perseverance, a metaphor for scholars facing the imperial exams, for children learning to walk, for farmers braving floods. To leap the Dragon Gate was to become something more than mortal. It was to claim destiny. The image of the koi and the gate was often carved into jade talismans, worn by hopeful students and ambitious travelers. There is also the tale of the Yellow Emperor, Huangdi, who is said to have summoned a dragon to carry him to the heavens. Upon completing his earthly mission, he was a sage king, a culture hero who taught his people medicine, agriculture, music, and governance. His dragon came down in a storm of golden light, its voice like the roll of drums and the whisper of bamboo leaves. When Huangdi ascended, the dragon was not a chariot of war, but a bridge between this world and the realm of the immortals. From that day, the imperial lineage was said to be of dragon blood, and golden dragons were painted on the walls of the forbidden city. The lung was also a rainbringer. In the days when drought scorched, the land and rivers ran dry. The people would pray to the dragon kings. They would craft intricate offerings and float them on the water, hoping to catch the attention of the water dragons who governed the skies. Children would fold paper dragons and set them afloat on ponds. Monks would chant beneath dragon effigies coiled in stone. Entire villages gathered to beat drums, light incense, and call for the blessings of rain. In some stories, dragons would descend from their celestial palaces to mingle with mortals. There is a tale of a poor farmer who saved a stranded fish and released it back into the river. That night, a golden dragon appeared in his dreams and thanked him. The next morning, his withered field bloomed with rice and lilies, and a stream ran through it that never dried. From that day on, he was known as the dragon's friend, and his descendants prospered for generations. These dragons were not malevolent hoarders of gold, as in Western tales, but protectors of abundance. Their treasures were not coins and gems, but rain, wind, harmony, and the balance of all living things. They dwelt in temples of jade beneath the ocean, in clouds embroidered with lightning, in mountain springs that never froze. To see a dragon in a dream was a sign of profound good fortune. Pregnant women would hang dragon charms by their windows, hoping their children would be born strong and wise. To this day, during Chinese New Year, dancers parade through streets beneath long, flowing dragon puppets. The dragon dances, twists, and coils, bringing joy and blessing to homes and businesses. Firecrackers snap like dragon breath, and the air is thick with the scent of incense and steamed dumplings. It is a living echo of the ancient Lung, a reminder that myths live not just in books, but in streets and celebrations, in memory and mist. So when you hear the soft fall of rain against your window, or see clouds curl like smoke above the mountains, you might think of the Lung gliding silently across the sky, watching, guarding, dreaming, the first of many dragons to guide us tonight, and perhaps the gentlest. The Naga serpent kings of India and Southeast Asia before the echo of human civilization spread across river valleys and plains, when the earth was still raw and whispering with primeval secrets, there existed beings of shimmering grace and unimaginable power, neither entirely divine nor wholly animal. They were the Nga, the Serpent Kings, and they slithered through the mythic roots of India and Southeast Asia like veins of jade and shadow, entwining themselves into the very soul of the land. The word Nga itself evokes a feeling of reverence and unease, recognition of something ancient and watching. In Hinduism, Buddhism, Jainism, and the countless folk traditions that thread their way through the Indian subcontinent and its eastern neighbors, Ngas appear not just as dragons or spirits, but as custodians of sacred waters, gatekeepers to realms of wisdom and lords of transformation. Their lore is not confined to one role or realm. It is fluid, shifting, serpentine, just like them. They dwell in Patala, the underworld, not a realm of darkness and punishment, but a glowing sanctuary of marvels. Imagine a city built of crystal and illuminated by bioluminescent moss, where rivers of silver and quicksilver weave through floating gardens. Bhagavati, their jeweled capital, pulses with a quiet magic. Ruby columns spiral into darkness. Lotus groves bloom with flame-colored petals. The air smells of rain on stone and sandalwood. This is the seat of the Nga kings of Vasuki and Tokshika, of Manasa, Devi, and the radiant Alupi. Each carries within them 1,000 years of wisdom, and each guards a story written not in words, but in water and earth, though snake-like in their primal form, hooded, coiled, and gleaming with emerald and gold nagars, are not limited by that shape. They can become human, often breathtakingly beautiful, or take forms in between. Serpents with the faces of princes, women with scaled arms, beings whose eyes reflect the moonlight like a still lake. This shape-shifting ability has led to many stories of Engius marrying humans, birthing lineages of both wonder and woe. But the Engius are not merely decorative spirits. They are elemental. They are water made sentient. Every river is a vein of their being, every spring a breath. When the rain falls with sudden fury, or the lakes swell and recede with uncanny timing, people whisper that the Ngas are stirring. Their realm is a place between motion and stillness, between fear and grace. Their hiss can summon storms, but their lull can restore balance. In the epic Mahabharata, one of the most pivotal moments in the universe unfolds because of an Ega Vasuki, the king of serpents. When the gods, devas, and demons Asuras agree to churn the ocean of milk to produce the nectar of immortality, it is Vasuki who becomes the churning rope. Coiled around the sacred mountain Mandara, Vasuki endures the agony of being tugged and twisted until the ocean surrenders its treasures, divine beings, elixirs, and cosmic artifacts. He endures the pain not as punishment, but as duty. For in Nga myth, endurance births transformation. Poison rises during the churning, threatening to consume the cosmos, but Shiva drinks it, his throat turning blue. From chaos and suffering, balance is restored. Vasuki's sacrifice anchors the world. Ingas are also guardians of wisdom, literal and symbolic. Beneath countless Hindu temples, it is said that Ingas coil around sacred stones and scrolls. In esoteric Buddhist traditions, they protect hidden sutras and mantras, revealing them only when the time is right. Some legends tell of Ngios appearing to wandering monks, delivering teachings through dreams or sudden insight, disappearing like mist before morning. One such tale tells of the great Buddhist monk Nagarjuna, a historical figure of immense influence. Legend says he was taken by the Ngas to their undersea realm, where they revealed to him the Prajnaparamita Sutras, foundational texts on emptiness and transcendent wisdom. Upon his return, he shared this knowledge with the world, becoming a bridge between humanity and the depths. The very name Nagarjuna carries within it the word Nga, a reminder of the deep, coiled connection between knowledge and mystery. In Southeast Asia, the Naga's presence is just as potent. In Laos, the Nga are said to dwell in the depths of the Mekong River. They are revered as protectors of the land, and offerings are made to them during the full moon of Buddhist Lent. The Naga fireballs, mysterious orbs of light that rise from the Mekong on certain nights, are believed to be their breath, released in joy or warning. Scientists offer theories combustibles, tricks of light, but locals know better. The Naga are watching. In Thailand, Ingas are revered as stairway guardians, especially in forest temples. They slither up the balustrades of sacred pathways, mouths open in silent warning, scales painted in greens and blues that shimmer in candlelight. Their presence is not one of menace, but purification. As monks walk between their watchful gazes, it's believed that evil spirits are driven away, and the journey toward enlightenment is cleared. One of the most haunting tales comes from the Jotaka stories, which tell of a Naga who falls in love with a monk. Yearning for the monk's presence, the Nga transforms into a man and joins the monastery, but his deception cannot last. Discovered, he is exiled not in anger, but with sorrow. The story is not of betrayal, but of longing and the pain of separation. It is a reflection on desire, impermanence, and the boundary between worlds. Even in modern India, worship of Ngas continues. In Nag Panchami, devotees offer milk and incense at serpent shrines. In villages, snake mounds are honored as sacred. Places to dream of a Naga is considered a potent omen. Pregnant women offer prayers for safe delivery, believing Nga spirits can protect unborn children. Farmers seek their blessing before tilling the soil. The bond between the Nga and the people is not one of superstition, it is a shared heritage. A memory of the time when serpents shaped the world. And yet, for all their glory, Ngas are not untouchable. In some tales, they are vengeful, striking those who disrespect the earth or the sacred waters. A single curse from a wronged Nga can cause withering drought or eternal misfortune. But when revered, when approached with humility and care, they are among the most generous of beings. They bestow dreams, fertility, rainfall, and protection from disease. They are serpent kings, but also serpent guardians, whose coils embrace the world like a mother does a child. Their scales glint with history, their breath smells of monsoon and sandalwood, and in their eyes twin pools of depthless black you might see the reflection of your own spirit, coiling towards something ancient, something lost, something sacred. The NGA waits not just in the stories of the past, but in every still pool of water, every sudden storm, every whisper of scales across stone. They are the living memory of the world's secret heart, and they continue to guide us deeper into the realms of legend, breath by breath, coil by coil. Part 3. Jormungandr and the Serpents of Norse Mythology, the frozen realms of the north, where night can stretch for months, and the auroras ripple like serpents across the sky. Tales of dragons and serpentine gods are etched into frost and fire alike. The Norse did not speak of dragons as whimsical creatures to be tamed or ridden, but as monstrous, ancient forces beings that could girdle the world, shatter mountains, and bring gods to their knees. Among these fearsome beings, none looms larger, quite literally, than Jormungandr, the world serpent, born of the trickster god Loki and the giantess Angerboda. Jormungandr was one of 3 terrifying offspring. His siblings were Fenrir, the colossal wolf, and Hel, the pale queen of the dead. From the moment of his birth, Jormungandr was marked as a threat. Odin, the All-Father, foresaw his role in the end of days and cast the young serpent into the sea that encircles Midgard, the world of humans. There Jormungandr grew until his body coiled all the way around the earth, his tail clenched in his fanged maw. He is not simply a monster. Jormungandr is a living boundary, a force of nature, a divine Ouroboros symbolizing eternity and destruction. He dwells in the depths of the sea, deeper than any man can dive, deeper than the reach of sunlight, where the bones of sunken ships lie silent and forgotten. From time to time he shifts in his sleep, and the waters of the ocean swell with storms. His coils churn the sea, his breath poisons the air. Yet he sleeps for now. Norse mythology whispers that the world is held in a kind of fragile tension. As long as Jormungandr holds his tail, the world remains intact. But should he ever let go, should he ever rise fully from the depths, then Ragnarok, the doom of the gods, will begin. His arch-nemesis is Thor, the thunder god. The two are destined to destroy each other, and their encounters echo through the sagas with primal thunder. One of the most famous tales tells of Thor fishing for Jormungandr with an ox head as bait, with the giant Hymir rowing the boat. Thor casts his line deep into the sea. When Jormungandr bites, the ocean thrashes as the world serpent rises. Thor pulls him toward the surface, veins bulging, lightning in his eyes. The serpent emerges enormous, scaled, his eyes glowing with ancient hatred. Just as Thor raises his hammer to strike Hymir, terrified, cuts the line. Jormungandr sinks back into the sea, and the battle is left unfinished. But the day of reckoning is written in the runes. At Ragnarok, Jormungandr will rise from the ocean, unleashing floods and poison. He will clash with Thor in a battle so fierce that the skies will split. Thor will slay the serpent, but he will only walk 9 steps before succumbing to the venom sprayed by the dying beast. Their deaths mark the end of an age and the beginning of something new. Jormungandr is not alone in the tapestry of Norse dragons. Another is Fafnir, once a dwarf transformed into a greed-maddened dragon after claiming a cursed hoard of gold. Fafnir's story is one of corruption, isolation, and death, a being who kills his own kin for treasure, only to become a monstrous guardian of it, breathing poison upon the land. The hero Sigurd slays him by hiding in a trench and stabbing him from below, but even this act does not cleanse the curse. Fafnir's blood grants wisdom, but also doom. It is said that dragons hoard not just gold, but knowledge, dangerous, cursed, and seductive. The Norse dragons are not wise teachers or gentle guides. They are chaos, wrapped in scale and fangs. They slumber beneath mountains, curl in frozen fjords, and fly through dreamlike tales told by firelight. Each represents a part of the Norse worldview that life is struggle, that fate is inescapable, and that even gods fall. Jormungandr remains the ultimate embodiment of this philosophy. He is the world's end and its circle. He is the monster at the edge of everything, and while he sleeps, the world turns. But the sea is never still for long. Part 4. The Dragons of Slavic Myth, Xmi Goranij, and the Serpent Kings cross the mist-draped forests, snowbound plains, and towering mountains of Eastern Europe. Their coils a tradition of dragons as fierce as any in myth. In Slavic folklore, dragons are Zimi, Zamoj, or Zimu, depending on region, are not mere beasts, but embodiments of natural fury and chaos. And among them, Xmi Goranij stands as the most iconic, a multi-headed, fire-breathing terror whose presence darkens the skies and who appears again and again in epic tales of struggle, heroism, and survival. Unlike the solitary serpents of Western tales, Slavic dragons are often tyrants, ruling over lands with an iron claw and demanding tributes of gold or worse, of daughters with 3, 6, or even 12 heads. Xmi Goranij is most often depicted with 3. Each head can speak, scheme, and spit fire. His wings are vast, his tail lashes with the strength of a hurricane, and his hunger knows no end. He makes his lair deep in caves or high atop unreachable cliffs, but he is never far from the realms of men. When he takes to the air, thunder echoes. When he roars, forests tremble. The most well-known story involving Xmi Goranij is the legend of Dobrynya Nikitish, a brave and noble bogatira, Slavic knight-errant, and defender of the people, sent to rescue a princess from the dragon's clutches. Dobrynya confronts the beast by the banks of the Pukai River. The battle rages for days. Blades clash with scales. Fire rains from the sky. Dobrynya, wearing armor, kissed by spells, and wielding a sword of thunder, eventually overcomes Xmi Goranij by slicing off each head and burning the stumps to prevent them from regenerating. The fight is brutal, and harrowing Dobrynya is burned, bruised, and pushed to the very brink of death, but his courage does not waver. But even in death, the dragon leaves a scar. The scorched earth around the battlefield remains barren, and the smoke of the beast's breath lingers in legend. Xmi Goranij may be gone in this tale, but his essence lives in the fear of storms, in the silence of mountains, and in the fiery temperament of tyrants. His name is invoked in lullabies and warnings alike, and some say that the glint of his lost scales can still be found in the deepest caves. Shimmering like dark emeralds in the Torchlight dot in Bulgarian tales, the Zemai can be more ambiguous. Some are monstrous, while others are protectors noble, winged serpents who fall in love with mortal women or guard sacred springs. These beings often war with their darker counterparts, the Lamia and Hali, grotesque, misshapen creatures of famine and whirlwind. In one legend, a Zemai defends a village from a devastating storm sent by a Holla battling through the clouds in a war invisible to human eyes. Lightning arcs from their bodies. Thunder is their war cry. Rain falls like the sweat of gods. And when the Zemai triumphs, the clouds break, and sunlight filters down through the cracks in the sky like divine reward in Romania. The Balor is the most fearsome of the draconic Conducially, with multiple heads, venomous breath, and an unquenchable thirst for blood and chaos. Unlike the Zemai, the Balor is almost always evil, stalking the lands and devouring livestock, warriors, and sometimes whole villages. Some stories claim the Balor can cast illusions, lure travelers into misty woods, or cause plagues with its breath alone. Heroes who face a Balor must be more than strong, they must be clever, for brute force alone cannot stop a beast whose strength is matched only by its cunning. The tale of Grucianu, a prince who descends into the underworld to battle a pair of Balari, remains one of the most haunting of Romanian epics. Slavic dragons are not just monsters to be slain. They are the personification of extremes of drought, of storm, of war, of the wild and unknowable. They appear in dreams and omens, in sudden changes of weather, and in the creaking groan of the earth. Some believe that when volcanoes erupt, or when whirlwinds sweep across plains, the old dragons are stirring once more beneath the soil. The cracking of ice, the rustling of leaves at midnight, or the unnatural warmth of a cave deep in the Carpathian seas are the signs, they say, that something ancient still breathes. Even the Christianization of Eastern Europe could not fully banish the dragons. They were reimagined, reframed, not destroyed. Churches built upon old sacred groves often feature saints slaying serpents, of older rites where heroes battled ex-mies in the name of balance, not just conquest. The image of St. George, spear raised over a dragon's neck, is an inheritance of stories older than scripture, retold through new lenses. There are whispered stories, still, in the Carpathians, of lone travelers encountering serpentine eyes, glowing in the darkness, or of sudden heat rising from beneath snowy ground. Shepherds claim to have seen winged shadows pass across the full moon. Farmers find strange scorch marks in their fields after thunderstorms. Perhaps the old dragons sleep beneath the roots of ancient forests. Perhaps they guard secrets not meant for mortal minds, or perhaps, like Jarmungandr, they too are waiting for the day when the world changes and the skies split and they may rise again. For now, the winds howl through the birch trees and the tales linger. The dragons of Slavic myth have not left us. They are merely coiled in the corners of our world, watching, waiting, dreaming in flame. And if you truly listen to the hush of snow, to the deep song of the forest, you might just hear the heartbeat of something vast and scaled, resting beneath the earth, dreaming of fire. Part 5. The Hydra of Lerna, a Greek myth of terror and triumph in the land of Argolis, where olive trees twist over ancient soil and the wind carries whispers of gods and mortals alike. There once lived a creature so terrible its very breath was said to poison the air. Deep within the dark marshes of Lernaware, the veil between the underworld and the realm of men, thin dwelt the Hydra, a monstrous serpent born of Echidna and Typhon, mother and father of all monsters. This was no ordinary beast. The Lernian Hydra had many heads, some say 9, others 100, and when one was severed, 2 more would spring forth in its place. Its blood was venom, its breath a toxic miasma that wilted trees and caused birds to fall from the sky. Its lair, a sunless swamp filled with thick reeds and black water, was avoided by all save the foolhardy or the doomed. Even seasoned warriors dared not tread too close, for many who did never returned. Over time, the landscape itself seemed to bend to the Hydras. Will trees grew twisted and gnarled, and strange, luminous fungi bloomed under the damp canopy. The Hydra was not just a force of nature, was a curse upon the land. Cattle died mysteriously near the marshes, villages vanished under the cover of mist, and children grew up with stories of eyes that glowed red in the night just above the surface of the water. Sacrifices were made to appease it goats, oxen. Sometimes more, temples nearby fell into ruin as fear overrode faith. But nothing sated its hunger. The Hydra existed to spread terror, to remind mortals that even in the age of heroes, there were horrors that defied understanding. When King Eurystheus of Mycenae commanded Heracles to complete 12 labors in penance for past sins, it was the second labor that brought the hero to learn it, to slay the Hydra and cleanse the land. The labor was seen as nearly impossible, a challenge not of strength alone, but of endurance, wisdom, and courage. Many thought Heracles would meet his end in the swamps. Heracles did not go alone. His nephew Iolaus, clever and brave, accompanied him. They arrived at the swamp at dawn, mist curling around their feet, the croaking of frogs giving way to unnatural silence. The smell of decay and sulfur filled the air. Heracles approached the lair cautiously, his great club in hand. The earth trembled. Ripples disturbed the surface of the dark waters, and from beneath the mire the Hydra rose, heads twisted and hissed, each with a snake's mind and a demon's hatred. Its eyes burned like forge fire, and its scales were as hard as bronze. Its body glistened with slime, moving with a grace both hypnotic and horrific. Heracles struck one head, crushing it with his club, but no sooner had it fallen than 2 more erupted from the wound, snapping and screaming. Their cries echoed across the marsh, unnatural and ear-splitting. Realizing brute strength would not suffice, Heracles called to Iolaus. While Heracles smashed and hacked at the heads, Iolaus brandished a flaming torch, searing the stumps before they could regenerate. One by one, the heads fell, and with fire's cleansing power, none returned. The battle raged for hours. The swamp became a churning pit of mud and blood, fire and smoke. Heracles was bitten, his skin blackening around the wounds. Iolaus too was singed and nearly drowned in the muck. But they fought on, driven by purpose and the grim knowledge that failure meant the Hydra's terror would spread beyond Lerna. But the Hydra had a final secret. Its central head, larger than the rest, was immortal. No sword or flame could destroy it. Heracles changed tactics, using the golden sickle gifted by Athena to sever the undying head. It hissed and wailed, but Heracles struck true. Then he buried it beneath a massive stone, trapping the cursed flesh beneath the earth forever. Its malevolent gaze extinguished at last. From the slain Hydra, Heracles collected its venomous blood. With it, he anointed his arrows, ensuring that no wound they inflicted could be healed. Thus, even in death, the Hydra's legacy endured through poisoned weapons and whispered fears. Those arrows would one day bring down heroes and kings alike, including Heracles himself. When fate came full circle, the marsh of Lerna never fully recovered. It remained a haunted place, a borderland between life and death. Travelers spoke of strange lights, of a stench in the air, of shadows moving beneath the water where no creature should tread. Some claimed to hear distant hissing, others to see brief flashes of glowing red eyes beneath the surface. The fear of the Hydra lingered like a spectre in the mists. The myth of the Hydra is not only a tale of victory, but a reminder that evil can multiply when struck blindly, that courage must be paired with wisdom, and that some monsters leave scars that do not fade. It speaks of the price of power and the cunning needed to face threats that cannot be beaten by strength alone. It reminds us, too, of the toll on the heroes, their pain, their sacrifice, and the shadows they carry even after the battle ends. In the quiet hours of night, when the moon casts silver across still waters, some say you can hear hissing from the marshes of Lerna. And though the Hydra is gone, the darkness it embodied still lingers in stories, in fears, and in the murky corners of the soul. The tale of Heracles and the Hydra endures, not just as a record of heroism, but as a legend of resilience, strategy, and the enduring cost of facing our darkest fears. Part 6. The Dragons of Egypt, Guardians of Chaos and Cosmic Ordering, the lands shaped by the mighty Nile, where golden sands stretch endlessly beneath an unforgiving sun. The ancient Egyptians crafted myths that have echoed through millennia, of dragons and serpents that were not mere monsters, but living symbols of cosmic forces. These creatures inhabited the boundary between worlds, embodying the eternal tension between chaos and order, destruction and creation, darkness and light. Their stories reveal profound truths about existence itself, entwined with the rhythms of the natural and divine. The cosmic battle, Apep and Wraith, most infamous of these dragons, was Apep, or Apophis, the serpent dragon of darkness and destruction. Apep was no ordinary beast. He was the physical manifestation of Isfit, the principle of chaos that threatened to undo the divine order sustaining the universe. From the primeval waters of Nun, the boundless, dark abyss preceding creation, Apep emerged, coiling through the underworld with the intent to devour Ra, the sun god whose journey across the sky ensured life's continuation every night. The sun god's celestial bark sailed into the Duat, a mysterious realm teeming with spirits and dangers. Here Apep lay in wait, his gargantuan body writhing beneath the waves, his fiery eyes burning with hatred. The battle was fierce and unending. Apep would strike and coil, attempting to swallow the sun and plunge the world into eternal darkness. His hiss echoed like a storm, and his breath was said to poison the very air. Yet Ra was not without allies. Memnon, the protective serpent dragon, encircled Ra's boat, his glowing coils shielding the sun god from harm. In this nightly struggle between destruction and protection, chaos and order, the Egyptians saw a cosmic drama that ensured the dawn would come, that the world would not be swallowed by darkness. Stories of divine assistance. The conflict was not Ra's alone. Several gods played crucial roles in combating Apep's menace. Set, often misunderstood as a god of chaos, was actually one of Ra's champions, fiercely battling the serpent with great power and cunning. The goddess Isis, known for her magical prowess, wielded spells that bound and blinded Apep, Bastet, the fierce lioness goddess, and other divine protectors also joined the fray, their combined strength symbolizing the unity needed to maintain cosmic order. Priests of ancient Egypt enacted sacred rituals, chanting spells from the Book of the Dead and performing symbolic acts of slaying and banishment. These rites were not merely religious ceremonies, they were believed to have real cosmic power, ensuring the sun's safe passage and the continuation of life. In many ways, the battle with Apep was fought nightly, both in the spiritual realm and in the hearts of the faithful. Dragons beyond Apep, Menin and the cosmic serpentile. Apep personified chaos, other serpents symbolized protection and renewal. Menno, whose name means coiled one, wrapped himself around Ra like a celestial guardian. His spiral form represented eternity and the cyclical nature of life and death. Far from a mere protector, Maman embodied the mystery of transformation, the way life curls back upon itself in endless cycles. Serpentine dragons also symbolized the primeval waters nun from which the universe sprang. The Egyptian cosmos began in these swirling, chaotic waters, with the dragon serpent as the cosmic womb from which creation emerged. This duality made the dragon both destroyer and creator, a sacred force that reminded the Egyptians of the ever-turning wheel of existence. The uraeus, royal power and divine protection, one of the most enduring serpent symbols, was the uraeus, the rearing cobra worn on the crowns of pharaohs. More than decoration, the uraeus represented divine authority, royal protection, and the power to strike down enemies of order. It was believed to spit fire at those who threatened the king, embodying the fierce protective aspect of the serpent dragon. The uraeus linked earthly power with the divine, symbolizing that the pharaoh was the earthly guardian of Maat. Pharaohs were seen as mediators between gods and men, their crowns bearing the serpentine dragon as a reminder of the sacred duty to uphold balance and resist chaos. Symbolism and cultural legacy. The Egyptian dragon's symbolism influenced cultures far beyond the Nile. The concept of the Ouroboros, the serpent biting its own tail, representing eternity and cyclicality, originates in Egyptian iconography, later adopted by Greek, Roman, and alchemical traditions. This image, a direct descendant of the cosmic serpent, encapsulates the infinite cycle of birth, death, and rebirth. Dragons and serpents as guardians, symbols of chaos and order, echo in mythologies worldwide, from the Norse Jormungandr encircling Midgard to the Chinese lung dragons embodying water and power. The Egyptian understanding of these creatures as complex forces, rather than mere monsters, shaped how civilizations viewed serpents as both feared and revered, destructive yet necessary. The dragon's enduring presence today, the remnants of Egyptian serpent dragon myths survive in hieroglyphs, temple reliefs, and funerary art. In the winding corridors of the Valley of the Kings, serpent imagery warns of dangers and protection. The carvings of men and Urias still guard the tombs of kings, while stories of Apep's nightly assault live on in scholarly study and cultural imagination. Walking through these ancient sites, one can almost hear the whispered hiss of cosmic serpents coiling beneath the sands and waters. The desert winds seem to carry their eternal struggle, the dance of chaos and order, light and shadow, death and rebirth. The dragons of Egypt are not simply mythic monsters, but timeless symbols of the universe's delicate balance, teaching us that life's greatest battles are fought not with brute force alone, but with wisdom, resilience, and reverence for the forces beyond our control. Part 7. The Dragons of Celtic Myth, Guardians of the Land, Sovereignty, and the other world across the mist-wreathed hills, dense ancient forests, and rugged coasts of Celtic lands stretching from Ireland and Scotland to Wales, Cornwall, and Brittany. The dragon was far more than a fearsome beast. It was a profound symbol of cosmic power, sovereignty, and the very pulse of the natural and spiritual worlds. Unlike the often destructive dragons of other mythologies, Celtic dragons embodied a complex duality. They were protectors and destroyers, keepers of sacred wisdom and fierce guardians of the land's secret energies. These serpentine creatures were deeply entwined with the cycles of nature, the fate of kingdoms, and the mysterious boundary between the human world and the other world, the realm of spirits, gods, and eternal truths. The ancient Celts believed dragons inhabited liminal spaces, hidden lakes shimmering with uncanny light, deep caves echoing with whispered secrets, mist-enshrouded mountains where earth met sky. These places were thresholds where the veil between the mortal realm and the supernatural was thin, where magic and mystery seeped into the world. To the Celts, dragons were not merely beasts, but guardians of these sacred borders, protectors of treasures, both material glistening hoards of gold and immaterial, the deep wells of prophecy, ancient knowledge, and the forces that bound the world together. Their scales, shimmering like whetstones or polished metal, reflected the changing seasons, the restless flow of rivers, and the hidden currents pulsing beneath the soil. Unlike the purely malevolent monsters in some traditions, Celtic dragons were deeply symbolic, embodying the eternal tension between chaos and order, destruction and renewal. They were often associated with the land's fertility and the legitimacy of kingship. To rule the land was to be under the dragon's protection or its judgment. The connection between dragons and sovereignty is most famously captured in the legend of the red dragon Wydreg, Gork of Wales, a creature whose fiery spirit became the emblem of a nation. According to medieval tales recorded in the Historia Brittonum and the Welsh Mabinogion, the red dragon battled the white dragon, an incarnation of Saxon invaders in a cosmic struggle played out across the skies and mountains. The red dragon's eventual victory symbolized the resilience and enduring spirit of the Welsh people, a fierce assertion of identity and rightful rule amid invasion and upheaval. Dragons in Celtic lore were not simply symbols of war or power, but also of transformation and balance. Their breath of fire was a cleansing force, capable of destroying the old to make way for the newer. metaphor for the seasonal cycles of death and rebirth that shaped the agricultural and spiritual life of the Celts. This fire was sacred, a reminder of the eternal flame of life that flickers within all living things. Many legends depict dragons as shapeshifters, able to move fluidly between forms, emphasizing their connection to the other world and their role as mediators between worlds. The serpentine shape of Celtic dragons, long, sinuous bodies winding through earth and sky, symbolized the interconnectedness of all things. They were seen as links between heaven and earth, life and death, the visible and the invisible. Their coils mirrored the sacred spiral motifs found in Celtic art, representing eternity, growth, and the unfolding mysteries of existence. Through these symbols, dragons taught the Celts that life was a continuous journey of transformation, where courage and wisdom were required to navigate the unknown. Dragons also played crucial roles in many local myths and heroic tales. The story of Lud and Leflis from medieval Welsh mythology tells of how a red dragon's roar was causing havoc across Britain until it was captured and buried beneath Dennis Imris, a site forever associated with magical power and prophecy. This dragon's captivity beneath the earth symbolized the latent power within the land, waiting to be awakened at the right moment. The prophecy tied to this site foretold the rise of a great leader who would unify the Landan early connection between dragon lore and the destiny of rulers. Beyond Wales, Celtic dragons appear in Irish legends where serpentine creatures guard the entrances to the other world and represent potent spiritual forces. In some tales, they are linked to sacred wells and rivers, embodying the life-giving and sometimes dangerous qualities of water. These dragons were often revered as protectors of the land's life force, their presence a blessing or a warning depending on how humans honored the balance of nature. The cultural legacy of Celtic dragons extends far beyond ancient myth. Their imagery influenced medieval heraldry, where dragons became symbols of strength, protection, and noble lineage. Knights and kings bore dragon emblems on shields and banners, evoking the power and mystique of these ancient creatures. The dragon's image also found its way into folklore and popular culture, inspiring stories of heroes who must confront or ally with dragons to prove their worth and claim their destiny. Today, the spirit of the Celtic dragon endures in the red banner of Wales, in the knotwork and carvings that adorn ancient stones and castles, and in the stories told around campfires beneath star-studded skies. These dragons remind us that the land is alive with unseen forces, that power is not merely conquest but a sacred relationship between people, nature, and the divine. They teach that courage must be tempered with wisdom, that true strength lies in harmony with the earth and the eternal cycles of change. Walking through the Celtic landscapes, through misty valleys, along rugged coastlines, and past ancient stone circles, it is easy to imagine the dragons still watching, their eyes glowing with the light of 1,000 fires. They are guardians of the old magic, symbols of resilience and transformation, and living echoes of a world where myth and reality intertwine. The dragons of Celtic myth call us to remember our connection to the land and to honor the mysteries that shape our existence, urging us to embrace the courage and wisdom needed to navigate life's ever-turning spiral. Part 8. The Dragons of Japan, Guardians of Water. wisdom, and storms in the Emerald Archipelago of Japan, where mist clings to mountain peaks and ancient forests whisper secrets to the wind. Dragons have slithered through the realm of myth, for millennia as mere monsters, but as sacred, revered beings embodying nature's power, wisdom, and the delicate balance between humanity and the divine. These dragons, known as Raya or Tatsu, appear in art, folklore, and religion as majestic serpentine creatures, their elongated bodies shimmering with iridescent scales that reflect the shifting seasons and elements. They possess clawed feet, flowing manes like wild rivers of hair, fierce eyes full of ancient knowledge, and the ability to command both water and weather. Far from the fire-breathing beasts of Western myth, Japanese dragons are intimately tied to the life-giving and sometimes destructive forces of water-rain, rivers, seas, and storms that shape the island nation's very existence. The Japanese saw dragons as guardians of these natural forces, controlling the rain that nourished rice paddies and forests, and calming or unleashing the tempests that battered the coastlines. Their myths intertwine with the everyday lives of farmers, fishermen, and villagers who depended on the blessings of water to survive and prosper. To honor these guardians, communities held elaborate ceremonies and festivals seeking the dragons, favor to bring bountiful harvests or spare them from typhoons and floods. The dragon's dominion extended to the hidden underwater palaces known as Ridge, mythical kingdoms beneath the waves. Built of coral and precious pearls, home to dragon kings who ruled over sea creatures and oceanic mysteries. These palaces were gateways to the otherworld, realms where time flowed differently and mortals glimpsed the eternal. One of the most iconic legends is that of Urashima-ta, a humble fisherman who rescued a mysterious turtle and was invited beneath the sea to the Dragon King's palace. There he found beauty beyond imagination, glistening halls of pearl and jade, ethereal music, and maidens who danced with grace. Time passed strangely, and when Urashima returned to his village, centuries had slipped by unnoticed. This tale highlights the dragon's role as a liminal being, bridging worlds and reminding humans of the fragile boundary between the mortal and divine realms. It is a story of enchantment, loss, and the eternal mystery of the sea. Perhaps the most dramatic and well-known dragon tale is the saga of Yamata no Orochi, an enormous 8-headed and 8-tailed serpent that ravaged the land with floods and destruction. The storm god Susanoo, exiled from the heavenly realms and wandering the earth, encountered the beast, terrorizing a grieving family. With sharp wit and divine strength, Susanoo devised a cunning plan. He brewed sake so potent the dragon drank, deeply from it, becoming intoxicated and sluggish. Seizing the moment, Susanoo struck down the dragon head by head, ending its reign of terror. From the beast's tail, he pulled forth the legendary sword Kusanagi no Tsurugia, sacred imperial regalia, symbolizing divine authority and protection. This epic tale intertwines themes of chaos, subdued by order, the triumph of courage and cleverness, and the dragon's intimate connection to Japan's spiritual foundation and imperial lineage. Japanese dragons also occupy a vital place in Shinto and Buddhist religious traditions. Revered as protectors of sacred mountains, rivers, and temples, they are often depicted carved into roof ridges, painted across temple ceilings, or woven into ceremonial garments. In Shinto, dragons are linked to kami divine spirits who inhabit Natura phenomena, acting as guardians who maintain the spiritual and physical balance of the land. In Buddhist iconography, dragons symbolize enlightenment and the dynamic energy of life's flow, emphasizing transformation and spiritual awakening. Their presence in religious sites reflects their role as cosmic sentinels standing guard between the earthly and the divine, ensuring harmony within the universe. Distinct from the Chinese dragons that influenced them, Japanese dragons typically have 3 toes instead of 5, often emphasizing a more slender, graceful form. Their bodies flow like rivers or clouds, embodying the Japanese aesthetic principle of mano no awareness of the fleeting beauty and transience of life. Their flowing form captures the impermanence and constant motion of nature itself. Yet beneath their calm elegance lies immense power. Their roar can summon thunder and lightning. Their breath commands rain and storms, reminding all of the dual nature of water nurturing, yet capable of overwhelming fury. Japanese dragons also appear frequently as teachers, guides, and occasionally tricksters in folklore. Many stories describe how dragons test the courage, kindness, or purity of mortals, rewarding the worthy with wisdom, magical gifts, or blessings. Their shape-shifting abilities highlight their otherworldly nature and link to transformation. Central to the cycles of nature and spiritual growth, they symbolize the journey between life and death, the known and the unknown, the material and the mystical. Their cultural influence stretches beyond ancient myth into art, literature, and festivals. Dragons coil through the vibrant waves of ukiyo-e prints, shimmer on the armor of samurai warriors, and curl around the columns of ancient shrines. Festivals such as Ryujin Matsuri celebrate the dragon gods with rhythmic drums, dances, and offerings that call upon their protection and blessings for the community. Dragons remain a potent symbol in modern Japan, inspiring everything from anime and manga to contemporary art, a testament to their enduring place in the nation's collective imagination. The dragon's essence in Japan is not simply one of power or fear, but a profound emblem of the elemental forces that sustain life and the spiritual pathways that connect all things. They teach that true strength flows like water, sometimes calm and nurturing, sometimes wild and overwhelming, and that humanity must live in harmony with nature's rhythms and mysteries. The dragons remind us that courage and wisdom are required to navigate the ever-changing currents of life, and that the sacred and the natural are forever intertwined. Walking through Japan's ancient landscapes along rivers swollen with spring rains, past towering cedar forests, or beside storm-tossed shorelines, one can still sense the presence of the dragon. In the rustling leaves, the crashing waves, and the shifting clouds, their spirit lingers, eternal guardians of the land. Symbols of resilience and transformation, and timeless bridges between this world and the mysteries beyond. Part 9. The Dragons of Mesopotamia, Ancient Beasts of Chaos and Creation. The vast cradle of civilization, known as Mesopotamia, nestled between the life-giving rivers Tigris and Euphrates. Dragons were woven deeply into the very fabric of myth, religion, and kingship. These ancient beasts were not simply creatures of terror, but symbolic embodiments of the primeval forces of chaos and creation, forces that shaped the cosmos and human destiny alike. The Mesopotamian dragons were monstrous serpents and hybrid beasts, whose terrifying forms and legendary deeds echoed the elemental struggles between order and disorder, life and destruction, gods and monsters. At the heart of Mesopotamian dragon mythology stands Tiamat, the primordial goddess and personification of the chaotic salt waters in the oldest surviving creation epic. The Enuma Elish Tiamat is depicted as a colossal, serpentine sea dragon whose dark waters represent the undifferentiated chaos before creation. From her union with Apsu, the freshwater god, sprang the first generation of gods, yet when the younger gods grew loud and unruly, Tiamat unleashed terrible monsters, dragons, serpents, and beasts of destruction to punish them, setting the stage for a cosmic battle between chaos and order. This myth culminates in the heroic god Marduk's rise, who faces Tiamat in a titanic struggle. Armed with winds and storms, Marduk ensnares the dragon, slays her with a mighty blow, and divides her massive body, using half to raise the heavens and half to create the earth. This violent act of conquest from chaos is the foundational myth of the ordered universe, signifying the birth of the world and mankind's place within it. Mesopotamian dragons were frequently depicted as composite creatures, combining attributes from various powerful animals. The most famous of these is the Mukusukus, sometimes called the Furious Serpent or Splendor Serpent. It boasts the sinuous body of a serpent, the forelegs of a lion symbolizing fierce strength, the hind legs of an eagle for swift power, and a forked tongue flickering with venom. This hybrid form embodied divine might, speed, and deadly force all at once. The Mukusuku was closely linked to the god Marduk himself and often served as a guardian of temples and palaces, prominently displayed on monumental structures like the Ishtar Gate of Babylon. There, these dragon-like creatures stood watch, as protectors of the city and symbols of royal divine authority. Dragons in Mesopotamian myth were deeply entwined with water and its dual nature, both life-giving and destructive. The rivers, while nourishing the fertile lands that birthed civilization, were unpredictable and could flood without warning, destroying homes and lives. Thus, dragons represented these uncontrollable elemental forces, chaotic, unpredictable, and powerful. They stood as a stark reminder to mortals of the delicate balance between survival and ruin, a balance maintained by the gods and kings through ritual, sacrifice, and divine favor. Unlike later Western myths that often cast dragons purely as enemies to be slain by heroes, Mesopotamian dragons were more ambivalent figures. Their defeat was necessary to bring forth creation and order, but their power was eternal and respected. The dragon's chaos was not simply evil, but a vital cosmic principle. Without chaos, there could be no creation, no life. The ongoing tension between chaos and order shaped the Mesopotamian worldview, and dragons personified this dynamic tension. These legendary creatures also permeated Mesopotamian art and architecture. Their fearsome and composite forms were carved in stone reliefs, painted on pottery, and emblazoned on royal regalia. Dragons flanked gateways and temple walls, warding off evil and symbolizing divine protection. They were emblems of the king's role as the intermediary between gods and humans, charged with maintaining cosmic order against the ever-present threat of chaos. Their monstrous forms conveyed not only danger but also sacred power, an awe-inspiring reminder of forces beyond mortal control, further illustrating their mythic importance. Dragons in Mesopotamian lore were often involved in stories that highlight themes of divine justice, cosmic renewal, and the cyclical nature of time. The violent birth of the world from Tiamat's shattered body encapsulates the belief that creation arises from destruction, and that the world itself is a fragile balance, constantly threatened by primordial chaos. The heroes and gods who confront these dragons do so not for conquest alone, but to preserve this balance, to sustain life, and to protect humanity. Even after their defeat, the dragon's legacy endured through magical symbols, prayers, and rituals designed to appease or invoke their power. Mesopotamians believed that these creatures still lingered in the depths, in the untamed wilderness, and in the dark unknown beyond their cities. Their serpentine forms became metaphors for the unpredictable forces of nature and the mysteries. Lurking beneath the surface of existence, Mesopotamian dragons, then, are far more than monstrous foes. They are archetypes of chaos, creation, and cosmic power, ancient reminders of the eternal struggle that forged the universe. Their tales echo across millennia as profound myths about the origins of the world, the price of order, and the ever-present shadow of chaos that humanity must face. Through these dragons, the Mesopotamians understood the delicate dance of destruction and renewal that defines life itself. Part 10. The Dragons of Mesoamerica, Feathered Serpents of Creation. Power and transformation deep within the dense jungles and towering highlands of ancient Mesoamerica, where mighty rivers wove through emerald forests and the sun beat down. On sprawling city-states of stone and gold, dragons took a form unlike any found in other cultures. The feathered serpent, far from the fire-breathing monsters of other lands, these dragons were sacred beings, revered as powerful deities who embodied the very forces of creation, life, and cosmic balance. Across civilizations such as the Aztecs, Maya, Toltecs, and Olmecs, the feathered serpent stood as a potent symbol of transformation, fertility, wisdom, and the eternal cycles of the natural world. At the heart of this mythos is Quetzal, feathered serpent, whose name itself evokes the vivid green-blue feathers of the resplendent Quetzal bird fused with the sinuous, serpentine body of a dragon. Quetzalcoatl was a god of wind, rain, knowledge, and the morning stars, worshipped as the benevolent creator who shaped mankind from the bones of previous worlds. His image, shimmering in vibrant feathers and crowned with serpent scales, adorned temples and codices, reminding mortals of the divine breath that animates life itself. He was the bringer of maize, the giver of sacred arts like writing and astronomy, and the patron of priests and kings. Unlike the destructive dragons of many myths, Quetzalcoatl's power was nurturing and transformative. Yet, this feathered dragon was no mere benign spirit. He embodied the complex dualities of existence. He was both creator and destroyer, mortal and divine, life-giver and a symbol of sacrifice. His myths tell of exile and return, death and rebirth, reflecting the cyclical nature of time as understood by Mesoamerican peoples. Quetzalcoatl's promised return was a beacon of hope, symbolizing renewal and the eternal promise of cosmic order amid chaos. Parallel to Quetzalcoatl in Maya tradition is Kukulkan, whose name means plumed serpent. Kukulkan too was a god of rain, wind, and life, and his presence is immortalized in the magnificent pyramid of El Castello at Chichen Itza. Each equinox, as the sun sets, shadows cast by the pyramid's steps create the illusion of a giant serpent descending the staircase, an inspiring reminder of the dragon's celestial descent to Earth. This spectacular phenomenon reflects how the feathered serpent symbol bridged the heavens and the earth, uniting sky, water, and land in one sacred cycle. The feathered serpents were not just gods of natural forces, they were also guardians of sacred knowledge and portals between worlds. In Maya belief, these dragons guarded caves and sacred springs, the thresholds between the living world and the underworld where souls journeyed and rebirth awaited. Their coiled, twisting forms symbolized the eternal flow of time, the interconnectedness of life and death, and the spiritual transformation required for renewal. They represented a cosmic axis around which the universe turned. Mesoamerican dragons were intricately woven into the fabric of daily life, religion, and governance. Kings traced their lineage to these divine serpents, legitimizing their rule. Through a sacred connection to cosmic forces, temples and palaces were adorned with serpentine motif-sculpted heads with gaping maws, sinuous bodies winding through stone carvings, and feathers carved with painstaking detail. These dragons stood not only as protectors, but as manifestations of the gods' power on earth. Their presence a constant reminder of the divine order and the king's role as mediator between gods and men. Their influence extended to rituals of sacrifice and renewal, where the death of a ruler or priest was understood as a necessary offering to maintain cosmic balance, echoing the mythic death and return of Quetzalcoatl himself. The dragon's dual nature as life-givers and harbingers of sacrifice underscored the Mesoamerican worldview that destruction and creation are inseparable, two sides of the same eternal cycle. Unlike the destructive dragons of Western myth, the feathered serpents were revered, feared, and loved as the very breath of the world, the winds that stirred the forests, the rains that fed the earth, and the sacred knowledge that guided human civilization. Their myths teach the importance of harmony with nature, the inevitability of change, and the profound mysteries of life and death. Even today, the ruins of ancient Mesoamerican cities stand as silent monuments to these dragons' enduring legacy. The carved stone serpents that wind around pyramids, the painted feathers preserved in ancient codices, and the stories passed down through generations echo the timeless power of the feathered serpent. This majestic dragon is not a creature of mere legend, it is a symbol of transformation, balance, and the sacred dance between earth and sky, life and death, chaos and order, in the twilight shadows of the jungle, where the wind whispers through ancient trees. Some say the feathered serpent still soars watching, waiting, reminding us of the ancient power that shaped the world and the fragile beauty of the cycles that sustain it. Part 11. The Dragons of Africa, Serpents of Creation, Power, and the Spirit World across the vast and diverse landscapes of Africa, where endless savannas meet dense jungles, mighty rivers carve through deep valleys, and ancient deserts stretch. Beneath endless skies, dragons and dragon-like beings have slithered through the continent's mythologies for millennia. Unlike the classic Western image of dragons as winged, fire-breathing monsters, African dragons most often appear as colossal serpents or hybrid creatures, embodying profound spiritual significance and a deep connection to nature's primal forces. These dragons represent creation and destruction, wisdom and chaos, guardianship of sacred spaces, and the mysterious power of the spirit world. They are woven into the very fabric of African cosmologies, appearing as divine beings whose influence shapes the world. Itself, one of the most powerful and revered dragon serpents in African myth is Ado Wado, a colossal rainbow serpent of the Fon and Awe peoples of West Africa. According to ancient oral traditions, Ado Wado played a pivotal role in the creation of the world. When the god Mawu created the earth, it was Ado Wado who coiled beneath the land, supporting it on its massive, shimmering body so that it would not collapse into the chaotic waters below. This serpent's iridescent scales glittered with the colors of the rainbow, symbolizing the bridge between the earthly realm and the heavens, between the seen and unseen. When Ado Wado moves, the earth trembles and storms arise, a reminder to mortals of the mighty force holding the world in balance. In this way, the serpent is both creator and sustainer, a living axis upon which the cosmos turns. The symbolism of serpents as creators and protectors is echoed throughout African cultures. Among the Yoruba people of Nigeria, one encounters the myth of Ophiana, giant serpent who ruled before the establishment of order in the cosmos. Ophian's eventual defeat gave way to the creation of the world as it is known, underscoring the dragon's dual role as both primordial chaos and the guardian of new beginnings. This pattern of cosmic struggle and balance is a recurring theme. The dragon serpent is a force that must be respected, for it holds the power to bring both fertility and destruction. In many African traditions, dragons are deeply connected to water, the life-giving rivers, lakes, and springs that sustain human and animal life across arid and fertile lands alike. These serpents are often regarded as guardians of these sacred waters, embodying the fluidity, mystery, and power of rivers that both nourish and flood, cleanse, and destroy. Among the peoples of the Congo and Central Africa, mighty river serpents are revered as custodians of the water's secrets and the cycles of rain and drought. Their presence ensures the delicate balance of ecosystems, reminding communities of the close relationship between humans and nature. The dual nature of African dragons is central to their mythic role. They are feared yet venerated, destructive yet protective, terrifying yet wise. This complexity is reflected in ritual dances, masks, and oral histories where dragons appear not as simple monsters, but as spiritual beings who command reverence. These creatures serve as intermediaries between the physical world and the spirit realm, guiding souls, protecting sacred knowledge, and enforcing divine justice. Shamans and priests often invoke their power during rites, seeking blessings or protection from the unseen forces that govern life and death. Stories tell of dragons dwelling deep beneath the earth or in hidden caves, guarding treasures not of gold, but of wisdom, life force, and spiritual power. Their scales are said to possess magical properties imbued with healing powers, or, conversely, the ability to curse. To encounter such a dragon was to confront the mysteries of existence itself, the delicate balance between life and death, the physical and spiritual, chaos and order. These dragons were not simply beasts to be slain, but living symbols of nature's power and the spirit's journey. Artistically, African dragons often appear as serpentine figures intertwined with motifs of water, fertility, and cosmic harmony. Their forms snake through carved wooden masks, woven into vibrant textiles, and adorn ancient rock art. The intricate patterns on their scales reflect the connection between the earthly and celestial, echoing the rainbow that links heaven and earth in many African traditions. These dragons are reminders of the invisible forces at play in the world, ever present and demanding respect. Beyond myth and art, dragons in African culture embody profound philosophical truths. They teach that true power is not domination but balance, that creation is inseparable from destruction, that the cycles of nature and spirit require harmony between humanity and the wider cosmos. Their stories emphasize humility before nature's forces, reverence for ancestors and the unseen, and the acceptance of life's cyclical, transformative nature. Even today, echoes of these ancient dragons survive in the rituals, dances, and oral traditions of many African peoples. The spirit of Edo, Wedo, Ophian, and their kin lives on in the thunder rolling across the plains, the shimmering rainbows after a storm, and the sacred waters that sustain communities. In the deep night, when the world is quiet and the stars shine bright, some say the great serpent still moves beneath the earth and rivers, watching over the world, a timeless guardian of life's delicate balance. The dragons of Africa are far more than myth. They are symbols of the eternal dance between power and wisdom, chaos and order, life and death. Their legends remind us that the spirit world is never far away, and that respect for the forces of nature is the foundation of survival and harmony. They remain a vital part of Africa's rich cultural heritage, inspiring awe, reverence, and a deep understanding of the mysteries that bind us all. Part 12. The Dragons of Persia, fiery beasts of cosmic chaos and heroic triumph in the ancient lands of Persia, a realm of sweeping deserts, fertile river valleys, and towering mountain peaks. Dragons have long occupied a place of terrifying grandeur in myth and legend. These dragons, known by names such as Azdaha or Azidahaka, far more than mere beasts. They are elemental forces representing chaos, destruction, tyranny, and the eternal cosmic struggle between good and evil that lies at the heart of Persian spirituality and storytelling. The most infamous of these creatures is Azidahaka, the three-headed dragon demon who embodies the darkest forces of the universe. His terrifying form is described in the Avesta, the sacred Zoroastrian texts, where he is depicted as a monstrous serpent with iron teeth, flaming eyes, and venomous breath that pollutes the earth and skies. Each of his three heads symbolizes a different aspect of ruin, unrelenting greed, destructive deceit, and insatiable violence. His body is covered in impenetrable scales, and his very presence brings famine, disease, and chaos to the world. Azidahaka is not just a physical threat, but a spiritual corruption, a demon of darkness who seeks to unmake creation itself. According to Persian myth, Azidahaka was once a powerful entity who was corrupted by evil and sought to rule the world. Through fear and destruction, his reign was marked by terror, his breath scorching the land and his venomous blood poisoning all it touched. The earth groaned beneath his weight, crops failed, and people fled from the shadow of his terror. Yet, in the face of this apocalyptic menace, hope was born in the form of the hero god Threta Onol, so known in later legends as Feridun, who rose to challenge the dragon's reign. The epic battle between Feridun and Azzi-Dahaka is a defining moment in Persian mythology, symbolizing the triumph of order, righteousness, and divine will over chaos and evil. After a fierce struggle that shook the mountains and skies, Feridun managed to imprison Azzi-Dahaka beneath Mount Damavand, a mighty peak still revered as sacred in Iranian culture. This imprisonment, however, is not eternal. The myth foretells that Azzi-Dahaka will break free in the final battle of Rosha-Kareti, the end of times, when he will unleash devastation before being finally defeated, restoring cosmic order. This cyclical vision of history where chaos must be subdued but never fully destroyed reflects Zoroastrian dualism. The ongoing tension between Ahura Mazda, the wise lord, and Angra Mainyu, the destructive spirit, beyond Azzi-Dahaka. Persian lore speaks of other serpentine dragons and monstrous creatures who inhabit the edges of the world, guarding hidden treasures or ancient secrets. These dragons often dwell in dark mountains, deep caves, or vast deserts, places that stand as thresholds between the human world and the unknown. They are guardians of natural forces, embodying the dangers of fire, water, and earth. Some dragons are said to control the fiery breath of volcanoes or the raging floods of mighty rivers, asserting their power over the delicate balance of nature. Persian dragons also symbolize the destructive potential of hubris and unchecked ambition. They are often metaphors for tyrants and corrupt rulers whose greed and cruelty bring ruin upon their lands. Tales of kings and heroes battling dragons are allegories, teaching lessons of humility, justice, and the necessity of courage and wisdom to preserve harmony. The defeat of a dragon is not simply a heroic feat, but a restoration of moral and cosmic balance, an assertion that light can conquer darkness when wielded with righteousness. Art and literature from the Persian world vividly portray dragons as fearsome beasts with serpentine bodies, multiple heads, fiery eyes, and breath that can melt stone. These images decorate royal palaces, manuscripts, and sacred texts, reminding all who see them of the precariousness of order and the ever-present threat of destruction. Persian epic poetry, most notably Ferdowsi's Shahnomi, immortalizes these dragons in sweeping tales where legendary heroes confront and slay monstrous serpents as part of their quests to safeguard their kingdoms and the cosmic order in the Shahnameh. Dragons are more than just villains. They are symbols of the chaotic forces that heroes must master to bring peace and prosperity. The dragon-slaying episodes highlight the qualities revered in Persian culture: bravery, wisdom, patience, and divine favor. These myths also underscore the cyclical nature of history and the eternal vigilance required to maintain justice and harmony in the world. The legacy of Persian dragons extends beyond Iran's borders, influencing mythologies across the Middle East and Central Asia. They became part of a shared cultural heritage where dragons were at once feared and revered, symbols of both ultimate destruction and the necessary challenge that heroes must face. Today, the myth of Azzi-Dahaka and his kin remain potent symbols in Iranian culture. Mount Damavand, where the dragon is said to be chained, stands as a sacred site, representing resilience, hope, and the promise of eventual triumph over darkness. The stories of dragons slayed in battles won echo in festivals, literature and art, reminding us that the struggle against chaos is eternal, and that courage and wisdom are humanity's greatest weapons. In the quiet deserts and soaring mountains of Persia, some say the breath of the dragon still smolders beneath the earth, waiting for the time when it will rise again. Until then, the dragons of Persia remain timeless guardians of cosmic order and eternal reminders of the fierce battle between light and shadow that shapes the world and the soul. Part 13. The Dragons of Mongolia and Central Asia, spirits of the steppe, sky, and eternal balance. Across the vast, windswept steppes of Mongolia and Central Asia, where endless grasslands stretch beneath open skies and the seasons sweep in, fierce Celtic dragons occupy a revered and mysterious place in the spiritual imagination. Unlike the fiery, winged dragons of the West or the serpentine water dragons of the East, the dragons of the Mongolian and Central Asian peoples are deeply connected to the natural forces that shape the steppe, the sky, wind, water, and earth itself. These dragons are not merely beasts of legend, but powerful spirits, guardians, ancestors, and embodiments of the eternal balance that sustains life in a harsh and beautiful land. The Mongolian word for dragon is Asi or Ijun, and these creatures are often depicted as long, serpentine beings with antlers like stags, scales that shimmer like polished metal, and the ability to command the elements. They are seen as celestial beings, messengers between the heavens and the earth, capable of bringing both blessing and destruction. To the nomadic peoples of the steppe, who live in close harmony with the rhythms of nature, dragons symbolize the vital forces of life: rain for crops, wind for the open plains, and the protection of herds and families. One of the most important roles of dragons in Mongolian and Central Asian myth is as controllers of weather and water. These dragons are believed to reside in the clouds and rivers, governing storms, rainfall, and the flow of rivers. Without their favor, drought could devastate the land. With their blessing, prosperity and abundance flourish. Shamanic rituals often call upon dragon spirits to summon rain or calm fierce storms, reflecting the dragon's intimate connection with the natural world and its crucial role in survival on the steppe. Unlike the fearsome, malevolent dragons of some mythologies, Mongolian dragons are often seen as protectors and wise beings. They are guardians of sacred mountains, ancient burial sites, and the ancestral spirits of tribes. Their antlered heads symbolize nobility and the power to traverse the boundaries between the mortal world and the spirit realm. It is said that dragons can shapeshift into other animals or humans, appearing in times of great need to guide or warn communities. The presence of a dragon is often a sign of great fortune or a call to respect the fragile balance of life. The steppe's harsh climate and vast openness inspired a unique dragon mythology tied to the cycles of nature and the cosmic order. Dragons are often featured in epic tales of heroes and tribal leaders who earn their favor or defeat rogue dragons threatening the people. These stories are not merely accounts of battles, but lessons about harmony, respect, and the courage needed to face the unknown forces of nature and fate. In Central Asia, dragons also appear in Turkic and Kazakh legends, where they are known by names like Here, Dragons are similarly linked with water and weather, often inhabiting sacred lakes or mountain springs. They guard treasures not only of gold, but of spiritual wisdom and life's mysteries. Many legends speak of heroes who undertake perilous journeys to seek the counsel or blessing of these dragons, navigating the boundary between the earthly and the divine. Art and symbolism reflect the importance of dragons in Mongolian and Central Asian cultures. Dragons are commonly depicted in elaborate embroideries, carvings, and ritual objects, their sinuous forms intertwined with patterns symbolizing eternity, the cycles of the moon and sun, and the unity of earth and sky. The antlers, scales, and sometimes fiery breath of these dragons all carry symbolic weight, representing the strength and fluidity necessary to survive and thrive on the steppe. Moreover, dragons are woven into the spiritual practices of shamans, who act as mediators between humans and the spirit world. Shamans invoke dragon spirits during ceremonies to heal, protect, or communicate with ancestors. The dragon's power is seen as a vital force that can be channeled to maintain the health of the tribe and the land. The Mongolian and Central Asian dragon myths remind us of a worldview that honors balance and respect for the natural world, where humans are part of a vast web of life interconnected with spirits and elements. These dragons are neither purely good nor evil. They are forces of nature itself, sometimes fierce, sometimes nurturing, but always commanding reverence and awe. Even today, the spirit of the dragon lives on in the traditional songs, dances, and rituals of the steppes peoples, in the howl of the wind across the grasslands, the shimmer of a distant storm, or the glint of sun on river scales. The ancient dragons of Mongolia and Central Asia whisper their timeless presence, guardian of the earth, sky, and the eternal dance of life. Part 14. The Dragons of Atlantis, Serpents of Lost Wisdom and Oceanic Mystery. Beneath the shimmering waves of the Atlantic, swallowed by the depths of the sea, lies the legend of Atlantis' civilization of incredible power, wisdom, and mystery, whose story has echoed through the ages like a whispered secret lost to time. Though Atlantis itself is shrouded in myth and speculation, serpentine and dragon-like imagery permeates many retellings and interpretations of this enigmatic empire, weaving dragons into the narrative of a once glorious society undone by hubris, catastrophe, and the relentless forces of nature. In the ancient accounts of Plato, Atlantis was a land of towering temples, vast palaces, and advanced knowledge, a civilization said to be favored by the gods, but ultimately consumed by the ocean, as punishment for its pride and moral decay. While Plato's texts do not explicitly mention dragons, later esoteric traditions and mystical interpretations imbue the Atlanteans with dragon symbolism, viewing serpents and dragons as guardians of the profound secrets. Atlantis held secrets of cosmic power, spiritual enlightenment, and forbidden knowledge. Dragons in the context of Atlantis become metaphors for both creation and destruction, the dual forces that shaped the fate of this lost world. These mythical serpents are imagined as protectors of the sacred knowledge encoded in Atlantean temples, their sinuous forms coiling through labyrinthine halls, guarding ancient scrolls, mystical artifacts, and the energies that once powered the city's legendary technology. Some legends describe dragon statues or living serpents that patrolled the city's canals and waterways, embodying the deep connection between Atlantis and the elemental forces of water and earth. The serpent, a universal symbol of transformation and rebirth, takes on a particular resonance in Atlantean myth, just as the serpent sheds its skin to renew itself. Atlantis is said to have been a civilization of cycles rising to magnificent heights and then plunging beneath the waves only, to be reborn again in memory, myth, and human imagination. This cyclical vision ties dragons to the fate of Atlantis as harbingers of change, guardians of hidden truths that surface only when humanity is ready to confront them. In some interpretations, Atlantean dragons are linked to the sea itself, majestic, serpent-like sea creatures dwelling in the ocean's depths, commanding storms and tides, embodying the primal power of the waters that both nurtured and destroyed the island. Their mythic presence in Atlantean lore symbolizes nature's indomitable force, a reminder that even the greatest civilizations are fragile before the elemental chaos dragons represent. Esoteric traditions often connect Atlantean dragons with cosmic knowledge stars, constellations, and the flow of energy between heaven and earth. Dragons are seen as celestial beings, mediators of divine wisdom, their multi-headed forms representing the many facets of knowledge that Atlantis mastered. Some stories suggest that the Atlanteans themselves were dragonkin, gifted with dragon-like abilities, heightened perception, longevity, and command over natural forces which set them apart, but also sowed the seeds of their downfall. The fall of Atlantis, engulfed by cataclysmic floods and swallowed by the sea, is thus narrated as the severing of the bond between humanity and dragon-guarded wisdom. The dragons retreated into the ocean depths or vanished into myth, waiting for the day when humankind would be ready to reclaim the ancient knowledge buried. Beneath the waves, the ruins of Atlantis, lost to time but ever present in the collective subconscious, are seen as a dragon's lair, hidden, dangerous, and filled with treasures that could bring salvation or destruction. Today, the dragons of Atlantis continue to inspire stories, art, and spiritual quests, embodying the eternal tension between human ambition and the natural world, between enlightenment and hubris. They remind us that wisdom, like a dragon's fire, can illuminate or consume, and that some truths lie deep beneath the surface, guarded by the serpents of mystery, waiting for the brave to seek them out in the quiet depths of the ocean, where light fades and silence reigns. Some say the breath of Atlantis's dragons still stirs the currents. Their presence is a whisper across the waves, a call to remember the rise and fall of civilizations and the enduring power of myth to shape our understanding of the past and our hopes for the future.